Hello my dear friends, I'm Sanne and I'm back with another beauty video, and today we're going to do a 3 looks 1 palette of one of my newest palettes, which is the Colourpop Mandalorian palette. Last year I already reviewed the Colourpop Baby Yoda palette, and this palette is an addition to that palette. And they kind of like added a whole collection to the Baby Yoda palette, because it was just the Baby Yoda palette last year, the child palette, and then they added the Mandalorian palette, a mirror, I'm pretty sure, 2 glosses. I'm not sure what exactly they added, but they added a few extra things. And when I saw this palette, I just knew I had to have it. I don't really have that many cool toned neutrals in my collection, so this palette would be a perfect addition to my collection. And also, I'm a big fan of Star Wars and the Mandalorian in particular, and Baby Yoda needed his friend, you know, so I really wanted this palette. And my boyfriend was so kind to give it to me for Christmas, so I have it here, and today we're gonna talk about it a bit, and I'm gonna do 3 looks. But let's take a look at this little palette first. This is what the Colourpop Mandalorian palette looks like. It has this nice silver detailing, and I really like that the drawing on the front already sort of shows the colors that are on the inside of the palette, because the shades that Mando is made of in this drawing are also kind of the shades that are in the palette, so I really like that. I also like that it's the same style as the child palette, so everything matches. It just is its own palette as well, like it is unique, but it also matches the other palette. And on the inside you have this lovely mirror with another little drawing over here, very cute drawing of Mando holding Baby Yoda. And then we have 9 shades on the inside, with one of them actually being a duochrome shade. The center shade is a duochrome shade. I think you can see it move right there. It moves from a more warm toned brown to a green, and I think it's really cool. I just really like that such special shades are also becoming available in more mainstream brands, because like a year or 2 years ago this was kind of unique to indie brands, which are less accessible to a lot of people. So it is nice to have some of these special shades in more mainstream palettes as well. So yeah, the palette has 9 shades, and again it's kind of divided in rows. These are kind of like silver grey shades, these are more warm toned shades, and these are kind of the leftover shades, I guess. It isn't as divided as in the child palette, but it still has clear rows. I feel like you can combine these shades pretty well. The only shade that I find a bit hard to use, because I must confess I have used this palette like 2 times, so it isn't a first look kind of a review. The duochrome shade can be a bit more difficult to use, because the base color of that shade is a lot more warm than the rest of the shades in the palette. So it is more of a shade that you have to use on its own and not really can combine easily with the other shades. But I'm gonna try. And then we have some lovely deeper shades, less deep shades, with a yellow for a pop of color, inner corner highlight, and some regular shimmers. So I feel like the palette is divided really well, and you can do loads of different looks with it. This is what the palette looks like, so I think we're just gonna get into the first look. And I do want to keep this first look a bit simple, and I do want to use the duochrome first, so we're gonna get into that. So I'm first gonna get into this really dark shade and kind of just slightly deepen up those inner and outer corners of my lids to get some sort of like a base going. And this shade is really interesting because it looks a lot more warm in the pan, and it also swatches pretty warm, but applied to the eye it is pretty cool toned. And I feel like if you blend it out with this shade, which is a more warm toned neutral, the entire look will turn out more warm toned. And if you blend it out with, for example, this shade, which is a lot more cool toned, the look will turn more cool toned. So I think this is a very versatile eyeshadow. I don't want to apply too much, but I just want to create a tiny bit of depth before I go in with that duochrome. So just blending it out a tiny bit. I'm also applying this on top of my eyeshadow primer, which is in this case my Catrice True Skin Concealer, which I always use as an eyeshadow primer. I also use this in the reviews because, you know, I do every single look with an eyeshadow primer. So it'd be very unfair if I test eyeshadow not in the way that I would use it eventually, you know? So I'm applying this on top of that concealer. And this deep shade is sticking pretty well. So I just want to make it a bit more warm toned because I'm going in with a duochrome later and this has a warm toned base. So I just go in with this lighter shade, which is Bantha Tracks. The deep shade is Creed, by the way, I forgot to tell you that. So I'm just gonna blend that outward just to create a bit more of a warm toned, you know, base to work with. You do gotta watch out with the deep brown a bit. It can turn a bit patchy, but it also might be my brush now, so can't really tell. But this is what I've got currently. So I'm just gonna go into the duochrome shade now. So I'm gonna dip my fingies into it. I feel like those shimmers always apply best with your fingers. And I'm not just gonna apply it in the center. I'm just gonna go a bit more on top of those deep shades as well. And then I'm gonna go in with that lighter shade and just apply that underneath my eyes. I'm just gonna go in with this shade, which is Beskar Steel, which is the inner corner highlight of the palette, to me at least. So I'm gonna definitely use that as an inner corner highlight. And that is the eyeshadow portion of the first look done, so I'm just gonna apply lashes and lips and everything like that, and then I'll be right back to you. Alright, I'm back with the finished look. I added some lashes. These are the By Libby Beauty Erin lashes, and the lipstick is the Max Amore lipstick in the shade Never Nude. So yeah, I turned it into a very brown centered look. This eyeshadow shade is just really good, this duochrome shade. It's not as sparkly and out there as loads of indie similar shades, but it's just a really nice subtle duochrome shade for such a neutral look. I hope you can see the shift at least a little bit, but I really like it. It's really nice. For this look I used the shades Beskar Steel, Bantha Tracks, Clan of Two and Creed. So let's quickly get into look number 2. Okay, I look really pasty white, so sorry about that. The lighting, we're just gonna leave it like this. But today I want to get into look number 2, and I want to go into a bit of the cool toned shades together with the yellow. So a bit like a grey yellow two-toned look kind of vibe, so that's what we're gonna do. And I'm just quickly gonna get started because I don't have that much time today, sadly. But I'm gonna get right into that yellow, which is Navarro Sand. And of course, I've primed my eyes already with my Catrice True Skin Concealer. So yeah, we got that going on already. And we're just going into that yellow, and I'm just gonna apply that to the inner corner of the lid over here. And it's quite pigmented, as you can see. I must confess, like, usually when I make these 3 looks on palette review videos, it's often like a first impression kind of thing, where I just try out the shadows for the first time. But I have played with these shadows already, and I kind of already did a look similar to this, but I just really liked it and I wanted to show you. And it just uses such a nice range of shades from this palette, so I thought it would be fun to just do this look. And I'm just kind of gonna keep layering and blending with this one, because as soon as you start blending it out, it kind of reduces the pigmentation a bit. But yeah, as you can see, this is not like a bright ash yellow. This is more of like a muted, more mustardy yellow, but I feel like that works really well with the grays in this palette. So now I've kind of placed that yellow. I'm going into this matte gray shade, which is This Is The Way. And I'm just gonna apply that in kind of a wing shape. I'm dragging this underneath my eye as well, as you can see. I must say the shadow looks nice. It doesn't blend like as flawlessly, like as easily. Maybe it's because of my base and my brushes, but it needs a bit of time to work, and I'm fine with that. I like to spend a lot of time on my makeup. But you can tell, like right now when I'm kind of rushing it, it does turn a tiny bit patchy over here. So it is a bit patchy, but to me it's something I can work with. So just do with that what you will. So now we're gonna get into the shimmers, and I'm first gonna get into this one, which is Imperial Credit. And I'm just gonna apply that to the center of the lid. I must say these shimmers are incredibly smooth and creamy and pigmented, so These really are easy to work with. And I'm just taking a brush going into that same shade and just moving that underneath my eye. And then I'm just going into the inner corner highlight shade again, Beskar Steel, moving it a tiny bit inwards. And I think that's all my shadows put down, so I'm just gonna clean it up a bit, add everything that I want to add, and then I'll get right back to you with the finished look. Okay, I'm back with the finished look. I absolutely love how this turned out. Like, the yellow accentuates the grey so well. It's like a really good combination. The grey is a tiny bit patchy. I did blend it out a tiny bit more with a more fluffy small brush instead of a compact brush. And it did help. It made it a tiny bit less patchy. So apparently that's the trick. I think it was just my brush that was causing the issues. These colors are just so stunning. I do think like the shimmers could be a bit more shimmery. They're very pigmented. There's a lot of color in them, but they aren't very like sparkly, but still they look very pretty and they match really well with the cool toned neutrals. I'm happy. What I used lashes are Lenny Lash lashes in the style Dazzle, and on my lips I'm wearing the I Heart Revolution Cinderella lip gloss. For this look I used the shades Beskar Steel, Navarro Sand, Imperial Credit, and This Is The Way. I absolutely love this. I'm about to see my dermatologist right now, so he can look at this, I guess. And I'ma see you soon with the third look. Okay, I'm back to do look number 3. And I'm just gonna do a very simple look because I kind of already used all of the shades, I think, except for Mythosaur, which is this a bit cool tone neutral shade. So I'm thinking of just going in with that one, then adding some shimmers on top, and then calling it a day, you know? Because the last two looks were a bit more extreme, more detailed, took a bit more time, very saturated colors. So I think it would be fun to also do a bit of a more simple look. So we're just gonna do that. I'm gonna prime my eyes first. And I'm gonna use a different primer this time because, I don't know, I feel like it. I'm using the Makeup Academy eyeshadow primer. Okay, primed and ready to go. I think I'm just going in with a very fluffy blending brush. One of my favorites. This is the Lenny Lash Fluffy Crease Brush. And we're going into that neutral shade Mythosaur. Blending that into my crease, I guess. I want to keep it a bit light. I feel like it does look a bit more grey on the eyes than it does in the pan. But I feel like if you add the real grey next to this, you can tell that it's a browner shade, you know what I mean? But on its own it looks pretty grey. It's almost like a taupey color. I'm enjoying this. Dragging that underneath my eye as well. But I think I just kind of want to add like a bit more depth and color to it. So I am gonna go into this like beige shade, Bend That Tracks, and just moving that, like using that to blend this inner corner over here. Like it doesn't do much, but I feel like it just adds a tiny bit more depth to the party. Like that, and I feel like that's the mattes done for me. It's really simple. It's a lot more simple and less complicated than the other looks, I feel like. I'm thinking I kind of just want to go in with this one with Beskar Steel. Move more outwards from that inner corner. If you want to give it a bit more depth, you can go in with Imperial Credit. And just do that outside of the shimmer a tiny bit. And I think that's it. I'm not going to use Beskar Steel's in inner corner highlight. I'm just going to use my regular highlighter. So yeah, something very simple, very neutral, and I'm just gonna finish this up, add everything that I want to add, and then I'll get right back to you with the finished look. Okay, I'm back with the finished look. I kept it very subtle, very simple. I must confess, I never wear cool toned stuff, and that's exactly why I wanted this palette, and I am absolutely in love. Just, this color is so nice. It just looks so smoky and simple. So what I used to finish up this look, highlighter is my Catrice Mineral Glow highlighter, I think. Lashes are the Essence Lash Princess Natural Effect False Lashes, these ones. Very, very subtle, very simple. I feel like they complement this look a lot. And lips, again, like the last look, is the I Heart Revolution Cinderella lip topper. The mattes blended really easily. They didn't give me any trouble at all. I absolutely love this. For this look I used the shades Beskar Steel, Benthatrix, a tiny bit of Imperial Credit, and Mythosaur. And like, I feel like after these 3 looks I'm still not done playing with this palette at all. Like, I really want to do a simple look like this, but completely with that yellow shade and just a tiny bit of shimmer, and just experiment a bit with the different shades in here, because there's a lot of fun things you can do. And those were my 3 looks using the Colourpop The Mandalorian palette. And you thought I was done? No. This palette is meant as a complementary palette to the child palette, so I can just not leave this video without doing a look that uses both of the palettes. So let's get right into that before I get to my final review. Alright, let's get into the bonus look. I'm gonna combine both of the palettes. Don't really know exactly how yet, but we're gonna figure it out. I'm first gonna grab the Baby Yoda palette and I'm gonna go into the matte mint shade, which is Babyface. And I'm just gonna create a kind of halo shape with that. I am gonna wing it out a tiny bit on this side. I also did prime my eyes using the Makeup Academy eye primer, just so you know. And then I'm just gonna go in with a tiny bit of the dark green shade, Float Your Crib, just to deepen out those outer corners and inner corners a tiny bit. Okay, so we have a bit of like a halo shape with a wing. And now I'm gonna grab a small angular eyeliner brush and I'm going into the Mando palette into that deeper grey shade. This is the way. And I'm just gonna use that to draw a bit of a wing. The liner is on there, as you can see. So I'm gonna go into Right Hand Mando from the Baby Yoda palette. Tap that right in the middle. Let's just also jump into another shimmer, Beskar Steel from the Mando palette. And just gonna tap that right on top of there. And now what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back into that grey shade. This is the way. And just kind of go underneath. And then I'm going into a small fluffy brush and back into the mint shade. And just kind of blend out that lower lash line. And then to finish it off, just go back into Beskar Steel and put that in the inner corner. So I think that's all the eyeshadows down. I'm just gonna clean things up, add everything that I want to add to this look, and then I'll get right back to you with the finished look. Okay, I'm back with the finished look. I just like it that the mint right now has more of a cool toned look to it than when I use just the child palette, because then it doesn't have a cool tone look to it. Then it has a warm tone look to it because you add warm toned shimmers. Anyway, what I used to finish up the look, the Lenny lashes in the style Dazzle, the Kruidvat Lighten Up Diamond Glow highlighter in the shade Champagne Pelican, and on my lips is the Anastasia Beverly Hills liquid lipstick in the shade Grim. For this look I used the shades Beskar Steel and This Is The Way from the Mandalorian palette, and Right Hand Mando, Babyface, and Float Your Crib from the Child palette. Let's do a little ending review of the Mando palette, the Mandalorian palette by Colourpop. I don't know yet if I like this better than the Child palette, but that's also because mint is my absolute favorite color. So the Child palette in that way is really deep inside my heart. But I feel like the mattes in this one perform even better than the mattes in the Child palette. I like this palette a lot. I love the Colourpop packaging of this. Like it just feels nice, sturdy. It feels quite expensive actually. The matte cardboard feeling, it feels really nice. The drawing on it is absolutely stunning. The inside of it looks absolutely stunning. The only thing that I don't really like is that it's such a light color palette. Like the packaging itself, it's white. And these shades are a bit crumbly. So every time a tiny bit of the shades gets on, like around the shade, like on the packaging, and it's kind of like stuck in there in most spots. So it looks a bit messy, which is a bit too bad. Like, it's such a nice looking palette and then you open it and then the palette just looks messy, which I don't like. This is a bit too bad, but I'll deal with it. It's fine. The colors in this palette are stunning. The only thing that I have to notice about the colors is the duochrome shade. I don't understand why it has a warm toned base color to it while the entire palette is cool toned and the shift is cool toned. Of course, the shift pops more on a warm toned base, but this way you can't really match it with any other shades in the palette that well. As you probably noticed with the first look, like, you can only match it with this shade or maybe with this one. One thing that I have to note is that I wish that the shimmers are a bit more sparkly, because they are a bit more like metallic. It is still a really nice shimmer, like a metallic kind of shade, but it's really metallic and not sparkly. And I just wish it would have been a bit more sparkly, so it would have matched the shades in the Baby Yoda palette a bit more. But maybe they did this to just kind of tone it down a bit, you know? The shimmers in the Baby Yoda palette are just a bit more sparkly, and I just like sparkles. So I think, like, the palettes are very different. They really have their own flavor to it. So I really don't regret having both of them. I'm actually really happy that I have both of them. They both just give such a different vibe. But as you can see, you can also combine them very well. So they definitely do complement each other, which I think is nice. And it fits the theme of the collection very well. So that's what I'm happy with. And I just think this palette performs really nicely, and it's one of the nicer neutral palettes I own. I approve of this. I don't know yet if I like it better than the Baby Yoda palette, but I don't know if I ever will, but it's just really good. It's at least as good as the Baby Yoda palette, and the formula of the matte is just a tiny bit better, so I like it. This is approved by me. And that concludes my little 3 looks plus one palette review of the Colourpop Mandalorian palette. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more from me. If you want to see even more from me, my blog and all my socials and my gaming channel is linked down below, so you can check that out as well. And that's gonna be it for today. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Toodles!